I'm here with Gretchen Rubin, author of The Happiness Project, and her new book, Out of Order, Inner Calm.
Yeah.
Happy you're here?
I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I always love seeing you, Dan, so this is fun. We get to catch up.
So over the past decade since we've known each other, what has really been the same for you in terms of your habits and techniques and what you're paying attention to, and what's changed?
Well, really, I, at the core, am a writer, and I just still run the library constantly. And so the thing that is the most the same is just my process, which is when I get interested in a subject, I'll read a million books about it, I'll take a ton of notes, and at some point I start turning it into a book. Whether it's a book like The Four Tendencies, which is something like I kind of made up, or like I wrote Out of Order, Inner Calm actually started as like a hooky book. I did it as sort of a playful diversion from when I was working on other stuff, but it was still using the same process. So that's very much the same. What I think is different is that just the way we engage with listeners and readers and viewers is so different. There's so many more tools now. The way people are engaging is changing all the time. YouTube used to be something I thought a lot about. Now I think more about Instagram. The goal is always the same, which is to engage with people who are interested in the same subjects, but how I engage is changing over time.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I admire most about you is you're always willing to learn despite everything you've achieved. What sources are you paying attention to, or what types of conversations have you had to be able to know what's next and where you should be investing your time, because you only have so much time?
Well, and that's a real problem because there is opportunity cost, and if you're like, ooh, I'm going to get real deep into Google Plus or something like that, sometimes you don't.
Do you have like a criteria of what needs, it needs to fulfill these three things in order for me to invest time, or is it just make decisions as you go?
I am such a late adapter, that I know that by the time I've heard of something, it already has to be so gigantic that that even someone like me is like, ooh, I should check out Instagram or whatever. Or if a lot of my readers or listeners are coming to me or mentioning something, then I will sort of take an interest. But I try not to get into things too early because it doesn't come naturally to me, and there is an opportunity cost. So I want to wait and make sure that there's really an audience for something. Now, when I got into podcasting, which now is about 4 years ago, it's funny, it's sort of like blogging. Like a lot had happened, but it still felt very early. And it was exciting to be doing something on the earlier side. But I could tell just from using podcasts myself that I thought they were really going to grow. Because it's just sort of like, this is just the kind of thing people like. If someone like me likes podcasts, then I think a lot of people are going to like podcasts.
Do you think that all the attention on podcasts and people favoring podcasts now, maybe even over blogs, has given rise to the audiobooks and the demand for those?
Well,
do you think that's a driver?
It's really interesting because my sense when I was first recording my books, that audio people were kind of skeptical of podcasts, that they sort of worried, okay, were podcasts going to cannibalize audio? But as you said, we've seen this huge explosion in audio. It's a thriving part of the book business. I think part of it is that it used to be that people thought, well, if I listen to a book, I'm not really reading it. And I think now people accept that that's a real way to read a book, is to listen to an audiobook. So you get credit for it. But I also think because of technology and just changing patterns of people's behavior over time, many more people are used to listening. And even like on a New York subway, like I took the subway here, I can read a magazine, and I have a magazine in my bag, but sometimes it's just so crowded, or you don't feel like fussing with pulling something out of your bag. You could listen to a podcast. You couldn't watch a video, but it's another way to get great content and to do it in the way that works for you in that moment. Like you're walking your dog. It's easy to listen to a podcast or listen to an audiobook, but it would be hard to watch a video or something like that. But it's interesting, since we've launched the Happier podcast, it's been interesting to me how many people now think of me as a podcaster first, and kind of also a writer. Whereas, of course, to me, I feel like I'm a writer who also has a podcast.
One of the big things you're focused on is all this clutter.
Yes.
Like there is so much, there's hundreds of thousands of podcasts.
Yeah.
There's
it's a cluttered space.
Millions of books.
Yes.
People are so distracted. The attention span is only a few seconds. So how do you stand out as a professional in today's world?
Well, that's a great question. And I think what's a little bit different about my approach to clutter than other people's is a lot of people say there's one right way. Like we should all be minimalist, or we should all follow a certain method.
The extremes.
Yeah, and I think that can work really well for some people. And every method is going to find some people for whom it really resonates. But in my own view about happiness and human nature is that a lot of people are different, and the way that you clear clutter really successfully might be different from the way that I clear clutter successfully. And sometimes when something doesn't work for people, they start to beat themselves up and think like, well, if it works really well for Dan, what's wrong with me? He's got self-control, I don't. He's got willpower, I don't. He's a real grown-up and I'm not. And I'm like, no, maybe Dan is a morning person, so he can do it early in the morning, but you're a night person, so you would do better doing this later at night. Or maybe he's a minimalist, and so he likes getting rid of everything, but you're a maximalist. You don't want a capsule wardrobe. You want to have a lot of choices. That's not to say you can't create outer order, but your outer order is going to look very different from someone else's. And so I'm always trying to say, like, well, what are you like? What works for you? And so I'm hoping that that will resonate with people, because they'll think, well, you know what? Something didn't work for me, but that's fine. I can just try it a different way. And this book is full of like hundreds of suggestions about things to try.
So how does outer order affect inner calm? How do you become like happier and healthier once you get everything else right around you?
Well, it's funny that it matters as much as it does. Now, I will say that for some people, they just don't care. Like my sister, who's my co-host on the Happier podcast, she's one of these clutter blind people. She just doesn't see clutter. It doesn't bother her. It's hard for her even to realize it's happening because she's just oblivious. Some people are like that. But for most people, outer order really does contribute to inner calm. And ever since I started writing about happiness, I've been really surprised by how fired up people get about it. It's super emotional. People are really energized. They love talking about it. If I talk about the idea of making your bed every day, people laugh, they talk. Like, I just noticed how much passion, but it's kind of disproportionate. Like, because I was like, you know, just cleaning out your coat closet is not such a big deal. I don't understand like why it matters so much. And yet, I feel it myself. Like, I feel like if I clean out a closet, I feel so energized. I feel so much more full of potential. I feel like I'm ready to tackle big things.
It's like a lot of people in the military say, make your bed, and that's going to set up your whole day.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just that little bit of order. And I've seen this over and over, because I am a happiness bully, and so I'm constantly like begging my friends to let them help me clear clutter. And it's funny, like, people will email me days later being like, oh my gosh, I'm still so happy. I had a friend, one of my favorite things, I helped a friend, she had so much clutter. We cleaned out her old huge walk-in coat closet, and she later had a dinner party a couple weeks later, and she was so proud of the closet, she made everybody from her dinner party go walk past her closet and look at it. That's how excited she was about it. And people often will say, like, once I cleared clutter, I felt like I could think about changing careers or applying to graduate school. Something about getting rid of those little annoying tasks that weigh us down, make us feel more able to tackle big things.
So you believe that less is more. Like when you travel around the world, you see people that might not come from a lot of wealth and be famous and have all of these achievements, but they seem to be happy.
Well, I think there's a couple of different things going on there. First of all, I think for everyone, we feel better when we surround ourselves with things that we need, use, or love. Because sometimes you love something that you don't really need or use, but you just love it. So I think that's fine. And I do think that we project ourselves into our environment, and because our possessions remind us of the people and places and activities we love. So I don't, and some people like to have a lot of, like talk about simplicity lovers and abundance lovers. Some people are abundance lovers. They like stuff on every shelf. They like choice. They like profusion. That's what they like. So they like a lot of stuff. So for them, more is more, but it's more of the things that they love and hold dear, not just more like random cords that who knows where that is, or those files that have been sitting there for 3 years. I don't even know who those belong to. That's just get rid of the clutter. But I don't think that it's not less for the sake of having less. I think some people who are like me, simplicity lovers, feel like you'll feel better if you get rid of all this stuff. But that's just not true of everybody. Some people like a lot of stuff, but they want the right stuff.
How do you establish the right habits that lead to having less clutter and more happiness?
That's a huge issue, because we've all had the thing where you do the big clean out and then a week later it's just as bad as it ever was. So you need good habits, exactly right. One habit that really works is the 1 minute rule. Anything you can do without, under a minute, do without delay. So if you can hang up your coat on a hook, if you can rip open a letter, scan it, see that it's trash and get rid of it. That just gets rid of these kind of the scum of clutter and tasks on the surface of everyday life. Another thing to do, and this sounds weird, because a friend told me, and I was like, this sounds stupid, but then I tried it, it works really well. When you are moving around your office or your house, if you see something that's in the wrong place, just move it as far as you can to where it belongs. Don't put it away, just move it along its path towards its home. you would think all I'm doing is moving clutter around my house. Like, what's the point of this? But the thing that's weird is how quickly you just get rid of, everything gets put into place. It's strange. Take my word for it. It really works. So everything's like constantly inching closer to where it belongs. Another thing that's funny is sometimes things seem to have their own idea about where they want to live. If you constantly find yourself moving something from one place to another, ask yourself, maybe this thing could live here. Like, let's say you're always moving your bathrobe from in front of your TV set to your bathroom hook. And you're like, every day, it's like, the bathrobe's in the wrong place, I gotta put it into the bathroom. Over and over and over. It's like, maybe the bathrobe maybe there's a way to keep it there, because it really seems to want to live there. Again, because sometimes we have like a theory in our minds about where things should go, but it's a lot easier to keep things in place when they're in the right place for what that object is.
What have you learned because you've collected so much data through your assessments and your quizzes, what have you learned about human beings and social psychology from collecting all that data? Like, what has that told you about your readers or just culture in general?
What it's taught me is that we're a lot more alike than we think. In many ways, we're very much alike, but the differences are important. And so it's really helpful to, I'm unique, just like everybody else. It's really helpful to think like, well, how am I like you and how am I different from you? Because in many ways we're probably very much alike, but there are important differences as well. And I think sometimes when people get discouraged with themselves or they get frustrated, it's because they're setting things up in a way that's wrong for them. And so in my observation, a lot of times when people take a step back and say like, well, what works for me? What kind of person am I? What's worked for me in the past? What appeals to me? A lot of times, there's a lot of ways to achieve our aims, and so sometimes when people are like, well, this aim just doesn't work, this strategy just doesn't work for me, is there another way I could achieve my aim? Like a great example of this is abstainers and moderators. When facing strong temptation, some people are abstainers like me, and we do better when we give something up altogether. It's easier for us to have none than to have a little. But then moderators are very different. They do better when they have a little bit, or when they have something sometimes. So as an abstainer, moderators are always telling me that I'm doing it wrong. They say it's not healthy to deny yourself sugar. You should be able to indulge a little bit. You should have a brownie once a week. You should follow the 80-20 rule. You shouldn't demonize a certain food like sugar. And I'm like, sure, but it's easier for me to give it up altogether. I'm happier. It's easier for me just to have no sugar. For me, that's the better way. I'm not saying that your way isn't right for you, but my way works for me, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so sometimes it's just saying like, well, people are different, and they can use different aims. They can use different approaches to get to the same aim of something like eating healthfully.
Yeah, after studying happiness and productivity and organization and all these great topics that apply to everyone, what have you learned about yourself, and how has it helped you improve your relationships in writing?
Well, I have my framework called the 4 Tendencies framework, which divides people into upholders, questioners, obligers, and rebels. And there's a free quick quiz, quiz.gretchenrubin.com, that people can take, and like 1.7 million people have taken this free quiz now. But what I learned for myself is that I'm an upholder, and it turns out that's a very small group of people. Not that many people are upholders, and one of the things about upholders is they find it pretty easy to change their habits. And I was always like, why is everybody else having all these issues? Just get on with it. And now I realize, well, I'm actually part of this kind of fringe, freaky personality, and most other people aren't really like me. They see the world in a different way, different things work for them. And so now I'm a lot more understanding of how to set up situations to work with people who are different from me, instead of expecting that other people see things the way I do, which they don't.
And you've been interviewed thousands of times over the course of your career. What question has someone not asked you?
Oh my God.
That you think is really important?
That's really important. Oh, I think that they haven't asked me, what do I think for myself is the most important habit? The one that builds creativity, builds habits. And I would say that for me, and it's not true for everyone, the habit is reading. I must read. Reading is my playground and my cubicle, it's everything. And yet, as much as I love to read and as much as I need to read, I find that even I need to fight to make time to read, and to read not just for the things I need to read, sort of for my work, but just playful reading, fun reading, rereading. If I had to pick one habit, apart from seeing my friends and family, things like that, I think it would be reading.
And what's your best piece of career advice?
Be yourself, know yourself. Because you can build a happy life only on the foundation of your own nature, your own interests, your own values. And if you're trying to be some fantasy Dan, or the Dan you wish you were, or the Dan other people would expect you to be, I mean, my first personal commandment is to be Gretchen. And the more that I'm able to be Gretchen, which seems like it'd be super easy. It's like, what do I do? But I just hang out with myself all day. How hard can it be to be myself? But it's kind of hard. And it can be really uncomfortable to face the truth about ourselves, like super, super, super uncomfortable. And so it's hard, but I think it's necessary if we're gonna make the decisions that really are gonna build a happy life.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, so fun.